Hey guys, we're back again today. We have our ninth interview, or maybe eighth. At this point, starting to lose track. We have a man most known for his role as Coach Marty Daniels in Blue Mountain State. For anyone else who might know him, NFL, former NFL player, one of the greatest NCAA players of all time, Ed Marinaro. Let's welcome him here. Hey guys, as mentioned, we have Ed. Sorry, is it Marinaro or Marinaro?
Marinaro.
Marinaro. Alex is right. Ed Marinaro, a man
Not
also.
like, don't pronounce it like a Canadian.
I can't help that. That's something I'm sorry. We'll go by Ed. We'll go by Marty. We'll go by Coach. We just won't go by the full
Whatever.
name.
Whatever.
How are you doing today, sir?
Doing very well. Thank you.
Awesome. How have you been managing during COVID? Have you been? How are things in South Carolina? We're not too familiar down here.
Well, if you had to be going through this anywhere, where I live is pretty good. We kind of like a little bit of a bubble. And I'm a golfer, I'm a fisherman. So we're pretty much done. It was not as bad as most places as far as people being crazy about this whole thing. Um, I'm not, I don't want to say I'm a rebel, but I never really bought into this whole thing as a lot of, and I'm in the age group. I should be dead already. Um, but we're doing pretty well. Getting ready to go off a couple of days to a movie in Atlanta,
Nice.
which should be fun. Everything was pretty much at a standstill for the last year in the entertainment industry. So it's nice that things are starting to pick up again.
And could we ask what movie you're actually going to be shooting, or is it off the record for now?
No, if I tell you, I have to kill you. It's a kind of holiday movie that I was supposed to shoot it probably 6, 7 months ago, and obviously that didn't happen. So it'll probably be released sometime in the holiday season, this in 2021, like December. It's a family kind of thing.
Nice. Are you a main character in it, or what's your role?
Oh yeah, I play the bad guy. I'm a villain.
Oh,
That
Ed's.
sounds about right.
Yeah, I've graduated. I used to be a handsome leading man. Now I'm an old villain.
Those are memorable roles, though. Of course.
Oh yeah, they're more fun to play. Nobody's asking me to take my shirt off anymore.
No. That I have a hard time believing.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I mean, speaking of playing, you, sir, aside from your acting career, are a pretty decorated football player. So, I mean, tell us about your time at Cornell.
Well, it was a long time ago, obviously, but it was a great experience. My son. I have an 18-year-old son who's a football player. He's headed to Cornell as well in the fall to play football. So that's going to be exciting to get back up there and see games and be on campus again. Yeah, it was a great experience. I was a really pretty good high school athlete in both football and basketball. I had some basketball scholarships as well.
Nice.
And but to be honest, I never expected to have the kind of success I did at Cornell. Um, Everything kind of fell into place for me. The system that they changed, not for me, but they changed it just before my first varsity season. It just suited my running style. And, I was lucky. I mean, I carried the ball. I averaged, I think, 40 carries a game and never missed a game. So that requires a lot of luck. And it was a great time. I mean, I'm very proud. Proud to have represented the Ivy League for my 3 years, and my teammates are people who I still very close to this day. And it's just it's a very unique brand of football even today. Division One, AA. It's very competitive, a lot of tradition, and a lot of great athletes come out of the league every year and go on to play in the at the next level, which is which is that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and during your time there, or I guess looking back on it, when people actually research you, they'll tend to find the quote that you're potentially the last great running back to come out of the Ivy League. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. You really, it's hard. It's not fair to compare generations when they're that far apart. I mean, I think that the athletes in the Ivy League today are so much better than they were when I played. I mean, we did have some great players. I don't know if you remember Calvin Hill, who was a running back for Yale, who was a Pro Bowler for the Dallas Cowboys, Rookie of the Year, had a great career in the NFL. But now, I mean, there's kids who have more options coming out of high school and choose the Ivy League, could play anywhere. And it's still football, and every year there are players who from small schools who make it in the NFL. I mean, where you play college is not always the determining factor in what kind of career you're going to have if you want to go into the NFL. I don't think you choose an Ivy League school because you want to play in the NFL. So that in itself makes the Ivy League football player a little bit unique in their overall approach to life. And I mean, I can't remember much these days, but I never thought about pro football. I mean, I think every kid from the time he played Little League baseball thinks about playing, being a pro baseball player. When you're a little kid, you fantasize about that stuff, and that's probably the extent for me as well. Until I was probably, first, I was named All-American in my sophomore year, third team All-American, and that was the first time I said, "Hey, maybe I could be a pro football player." But up until then, I was just enjoying my college experience, enjoying playing college football. Loved the challenges of playing against some great teams when I was there, like the Dartmouths and the Yales, and I was still in my own little world and enjoying it. And to answer your question, we've had some really good running backs, but it's a whole different level now. So it's not fair to kind of compare generations.
Yeah,
it's like comparing Johnny Unitas to Tom Brady.
Right.
Not fair.
No, it's not fair. Johnny Unitas didn't know about nutrition.
Building upon that, you mentioned earlier that we've noticed for quite a while, but your son is committed to going to Cornell next year. And at what age was he, whenever he really believed that he can have a future in football, whenever he was younger? Like, was there ever a point where he was like, wow, or yourself, where you're like, wow, he's going to make it. He's going to at least be at the NCAA level?
Well, you have to understand that when I'm guessing you don't have any children.
Not yet.
No, okay. Everybody thinks their kid is great. Mm-hmm. Everyone thinks their kid, the first time he throws a ball, thinks he could be a major league pitcher. I mean, just because of my background in sports and stuff, I think I felt a little more pressure that my kid better be good, or there's something wrong with me. That he was going to be a reflection of me, but I don't think I pushed myself on him. But I'll be honest with you, having been at the highest level there is, I don't need anybody to kind of, justify what I've done. I don't need any offspring to validate who I was. So I probably even more honest about my assessment of him as a kid. And he was always just, really, coordinated from a little kid. And you wouldn't know this, but, he never, we had a stroller that we would take if we go to airports, and everybody dumping their kids in strollers. He would never get in a stroller. He'd walk always. And, he was just, you like to, anytime he would do something athletic, you go, oh, wow, look, see that, see what he did, But, he was just good, and he took to everything. He took to every sport. He's just pretty natural in every sport. And to be honest, he doesn't want to hear anything from me. I mean, I can't. I try to talk to him. I bestow some of my, great wisdom, and he does not want to hear it. He does not care, And we battled about that too, he's a quarterback, and I say, Eddie, you know what you got to work on. You got to work. Yeah, good. I know. So I said, Eddie, well, don't fight with me, all right? I said, Eddie, I took handoffs and caught passes from 2 NFL Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I know a little bit about what a quarterback is supposed to be like, what they can do. Trust me, I'm not just pulling this out of my butt. I'm trying to help you here. He doesn't care. Doesn't listen.
Did you ever coach him growing up?
No.
No.
I never coached anything.
Fair enough.
I'm a terror. No, I can never coach. You know what? To be honest, I was never a student of the game, if you will. I always approached it in a different way. And I think I did anyway. I mean, I couldn't tell you the name of a defense. Now, I'm playing in the NFL. We always have meetings, and they'd be in, this is a 4-3, this is a 5-2. I never knew any of that stuff. If they would quiz me on it, I'd flunk. I just knew what my assignment was based on what I saw visually. And as far as, coaching, like teaching somebody how to catch a ball or make a cut, or I wouldn't know how to teach it. I could just do it, but I couldn't teach it, and if you think about it, most people what's that old expression? Those who can't do, teach. I couldn't teach anybody how to do something. If they could watch me do it, that would be one thing. But so coaching is, I admire these guys who can coach. But if you thought about it a little bit, and I guess in football, some of the best coaches were not the best players. In fact, some of the best coaches never played. And you look at some of the best players who tried to coach, they had a difficult time because their expectations were, they had higher expectations because they would expect you to perform like they did. You understand what I'm saying? I'll give you a great example who had a great career coaching but didn't last that long was like Mike Ditka. Do you remember Mike Ditka?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Mike Ditka was all Hall of Fame tight end, and then he coached the Bears. But he couldn't take anything less than, he expected you to be great like he was. And not everybody's great like that. And not everybody's going to play great all the time. And he didn't have the tolerance for anybody who couldn't play to that highest level. Whereas somebody who never played, like you said, they'll motivate these guys to be better. But like great players want you to be better on your own. So that's the difference between coaching somebody to and get the most out of them. And I don't think the greatest players were able to do that.
Yeah, we've even seen it like in hockey with Wayne Gretzky. He didn't have a successful coaching career at all. And on that note too, how did the acting come about? Because like you kind of highlighted, a lot of players just go right into coaching. For you, it's not a possibility. So
you want to hear something funny? Wayne Gretzky did an interview for Playboy magazine back in the day. I don't know how many years ago. And he mentions me in the article.
No way.
Yeah, because I knew Wayne. We were friends. In fact, Wayne's daughter, who's married to Dustin Johnson, sat on my wife's knee when we lived in LA, because we would see Wayne. We had a group of friends, and when she was a little baby, we met her. What questions you asked me?
So it was specifically about acting, but even on that note, like you being friends with Wayne, I mean, we always love to hear about him. So tell us a bit about Wayne, like as a person, maybe your favorite story, anything you have on him.
Wayne was just this great guy. He was so unaffected and as great of a player as he was. I actually went and played up at Wayne had a charity golf tournament up north that I played in. I think it was in Edmonton. I think it was. I can't remember. Anyway, he was just a really good guy, and yeah, we played golf a few times. We'd hang out. Just a good guy, and you could see that. He's always comes off as a good guy. He's the real deal, though, as a good guy.
Nice. So then transitioning to the actual question. So how does acting come about for you? Because coaching's not an option for you, you say. So acting as a second career, how did that start?
I got interested in acting when I was still playing football. I was in LA with Joe Namath. You remember Joe Namath?
Yeah. He had the awful injury, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Who, Joe Namath?
For the Jets, correct? No?
Yeah, he was a quarterback for the Jets. Yeah. Well, he's like a Hall of Fame. He does all the commercials for AARP now, or Medicare. Yeah. Anyway, he in his day, he was the guy and probably the coolest guy I ever knew. We became friends I met him when I was a senior in college, and he was playing with the Jets, and they were already world champions. And anyway, I was in LA with him, and he introduced me to some people. An agent contacted me after I had met him a few weeks later to see if I'd do a screen test for replacing Lee Majors in the $6 Million Man. I don't know if you remember that show.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so I ended up flying to LA doing the screen test. Obviously, I didn't get it because Lee Majors came back to do the show. But that got me interested in acting. So that I went back to LA and spent my off season in LA. I got into an acting class. I was in it for a few months. Then I went back and played. That was the year I left the Vikings and went to the Jets. So I went to New York and got in an acting workshop in New York City. And that pretty much put me on a path to the entertainment industry when my career was over. I did a couple of things while I was still playing football, but then when I finally retired, I moved out to LA full time, and the two most difficult things for a new actor to get when he starts acting is an agent and his Screen Actors Guild card, his union card. And you need to get a role in something before you get your Screen Actors Guild card. And it's hard to get a role if you don't have an agent. So it's this very interesting and strange situation. But I already had my SAG card, and I had an agent already. So that made it a little bit easier. But, I didn't get a lot of breaks early. I mean, I wasn't, people knew who I was. Not everybody, but they knew who I was. Remember, this was 1977, 78. This was before, obviously, any kind of social media. TV was different. I mean, there were 3 networks back then, if you remember. It's ABC, CBS, and NBC. So the point is, you didn't get, playing in the NFL, for the Minnesota Vikings, I wasn't on TV every week, and all the NFL games were not nationwide every week or worldwide every week. You got to see them if you were in Minnesota, you got to see the Vikings. You didn't get to see anybody else. So the point is, there wasn't a lot of exposure that you would get back then. particularly if I'm playing in a little podunk town like Minneapolis back in 1973 or 4. So, people would know my name only because of any publicity I got when I was in college and stuff. So I didn't, it wasn't like people were throwing roles at me. I kind of had to work my way up, which was probably a good thing because I got pretty good at being an actor and studying. And I don't know what that means. I got really good at it, but so I just, built on that. I was living in LA, living the life, single guy, tons of girls, Anyway, it was an interesting time, and I got lucky. I got very lucky pretty early. I did a show called Laverne and Shirley. I guest starred on it, and then the next year I did I don't know, maybe 10 episodes of it, which was pretty cool. It was a top rated show, and so that was good. And then I got Hill Street Blues, which probably was probably the defining moment of my acting career, being such a new actor to get to work with such a great show and not knowing at the time how great it was. I mean, I was just happy to have a job. And I was supposed to die. I was supposed to guest star in 4 episodes and then get killed. And then at the end of the 4th episode, they decided to keep my character on, and I signed a contract, and I ended up doing 6 years of the show. But just being with such wonderful, talented people, and not just the actors, but the writing was great, the directing was great, and so many people who went on to become stars in their own right, guest starred on the show. And it's mostly in retrospect that you realize what a great show it was compared to, a lot of the shows today are just sort of hybrids of what we did, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And then, from there, I just banged away. I was a, working actor. I did a couple of other series that lasted a little bit longer. And then obviously in the current sense, Blue Mountain State was kind of something that just shocked the hell out of me. I was the old guy with all these young guys. And when I read the script, I didn't, this could be kind of fun, and different. And I'm telling you, it's been phenomenal. Even to this day, the fact that guys like you won't even talk to me is kind of an indication of how the show has more than ever before, because of streaming and because of things like Netflix. Because normally in my day, and I did a couple of series, a couple of pilots that didn't go anywhere. They get put into this old pilot graveyard. You never see them again. And because of things like Netflix and Amazon Prime, the show got a whole new life and a whole new audience of people who were too young to watch it when it was on in like 2010, 11, and when it was on once a week. And then when it went on Netflix and everybody was binge watching it, I mean, it's crazy. It's like, I mean, my son, all his teammates, it's pretty raunchy, they go nuts when they see me, it's funny. So that's a pretty, it puts me in a pretty unique position, if you will, as an actor, having an audience that's so, it's like cultish. And I mean, how old were you when you watched the show?
Honestly, I feel like I introduced it to, I believe, even Alex and a lot of my friends. I had seen it on Spike TV when like it was the once a week, and then they transferred it to The Score, which is a local Toronto network, and I would
Uh-huh.
catch it at like 11 p.m., 11:30. But when it got on Netflix, I agree. I have multiple friends who we've binge watched it episode to episode like 4 times through,
Day after
and
day.
yeah.
It's kind of your Seinfeld. Because when I watched, I used to love to watch reruns of Seinfeld over. They always were funny. And with Blue Mountain State, I think the reason why it didn't continue was how our world and our society was changing, and um, some of this stuff, the drug use was something that people became very sensitive to, and rightfully so, because when these people, young kids were dying of opioid, you know, overdoses, and the Me Too movement, objectifying women, but it was, it was farcical. Um, because if you really look back at it, the women got the better of the men in that show. The guys were a bunch of doofuses, and the girls, it looked like you were taking advantage of the girls, but the girls were taking advantage of the guys. If you watch the show, it's kind of funny in that regard. Um, but it was just, it was so politically incorrect, but it was funny. I mean, it was cleverly funny. And when you look back at it, and a lot of people don't know the difference between clever and funny. And clever is when you have to take a second to think about it and then you laugh. And that's what the show was. It was, I look, this is after I, looked, I haven't watched the show. I can't remember the last time I watched the show, but I remember watching some episodes, and, I forgot some of the stuff that was even done. And it was just some really funny, clever. There was stupid shit that people would, gross stuff and, typical sophomoric humor. But then there were really subtle things that were very, very funny. And unfortunately, I think as a society, we've lost our sense of humor, because now you got to be careful at what you laugh at. I mean, people will not laugh at themselves. Everybody's taking themselves so seriously at every turn that there's nothing that's really funny unless it's mean, and it's only funny to some people, and that's unfortunate, because I'm not saying anything that hasn't been kind of beaten to death, but you look back at some of the old shows that were done 20, 30 years ago. They were irreverent, and they were probably like you wouldn't want to do these same things today, but it sort of puts today into a different perspective. And it's we were laughing at ourselves back then, and now we just don't. We were afraid to laugh at ourselves.
And so on that note, I mean, what would you say probably your favorite episode that you guys shot was?
You know what? That people asked me that before. I couldn't even say what my favorite one is. Probably the one that I'm have the most part in, the most line.
But they kind of built you throughout, right? Like I feel like season 1 you were kind of subtle, and by season 3 you were like very, very main character.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Well, obviously they developed the players in the pilot episode.
Right.
I didn't do a lot in the pilot episode.
Right.
But I thought the pocket pussy was a funny episode.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's good.
And the dick pics, and what was funny is the dick pic one was, just when dick pics were kind of, we were a little ahead of our time doing that subject matter. So that was, it was just, it was so much fun to do. comedy is everybody wants to do comedy because it's just more fun. Just doing the actual work is more fun. When you do drama, it's drama. It's heavy. It's dramatic. Comedy, you laugh like hell, and it's just funny. It's just fun to do, and it's good for your soul. And we had so much fun doing that show. It was not even like work. And working in Montreal was one of the greatest experiences of my life. It was such a wonderful time. I'll never forget it. I brought my family up there. We'd spent 3 months up there. And my printer is printing off. You hear all this noise.
It's okay.
I don't know what it's printing, but we're bringing it back today because it makes so much freaking noise. I think there's something wrong with it. Oh Jesus! Anyway, yeah, Montreal was great. We're going to go back. We had such great. I mean, we spent a total of 9 months there. We lived in the old port and great restaurants. Met some really great people. Yeah, it was fun.
Building upon that, I know that you mentioned before that, of course, you were back when you did Hill Street Blues. You only started with a 4-episode part, and then you kind of branched out, and you ended up being there for about 110 episodes, I believe I seen. And
something like that.
Being that you were so you were famous, your face is famous for being in all these TV roles back in the 80s and 90s, and you did such a big depth of work back then. But now to this current generation, you're known more so for a trio my age for the 39 episodes of Blue Mountain State. And how does that feel that you had such a long depth of work beforehand, but now you're really most closely associated with the cult classic?
Well, you know what? Again, it's a very enviable position to be in because I feel relevant. And most people, now, if I hadn't done Blue Mountain State, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys. I mean, and I get requests to do podcasts from your generation, every week, which is very flattering. But, this is kind of like a great thing for somebody in my position at this stage in my life, like I said, to be, your generation probably knows me better than they know Harrison Ford, or some of these. Think about that. Think of any actor. How many actors do you know that are over, let's say, 50 or 60? I mean, you probably couldn't recognize a few of them, but you'd recognize me. So it's kind of the best gift that an actor could have, to have a fan base from 16-year-olds to 70-year-olds. There aren't many guys out there or people out there who can say that.
And with that fan base, I felt like you really created that character. So what do you feel Coach Marty Daniels was really about?
What was he about? I mean,
how did you prepare for that role? What was it like building that character?
Well, the writers kind of built. I mean, obviously it's a collaborative type of deal. You try to. The actor takes a perfect example is Thad. He if you read that script, if you read the words, you could have done a lot of different interpretations of that. And Alan Ritchson just went crazy. And I mean, it's one of the classic great roles of all time. And it was mostly what he did with the role. So, another actor would have gone a totally different way, or could have gone a totally different way, but he brought his, whatever. It was brilliant stuff. It's, a lot of people might dispute calling anything about Blue Mountain State brilliant, but I think there was some great stuff. I guess the fact that I had coaches, I had a long football career, and I've had contact with all kinds of coaches. I brought a little bit of that, I think, to the role. When I had a football coach in high school. His name was Emil Karlik, and he was like 5'8", muscle-bound guy, and he was really a baseball coach, but he was coaching football. He was coaching me in high school, and my sophomore year in high school, again, my first year on the varsity, we were 0-7, and we were playing a team, Saddlebrook, New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey. We're playing Saddlebrook. And Emil came out into the locker room before the game. And he says, "Listen up, playing Saddlebrook today. They stink, and you stink. Now let's go see who stinks the most." Thankfully, we beat them. But when I went and read for Coach Marty, that's what I remember that speech, and I incorporated that kind of, cadence, the speaking, the attitude in the I don't know if you remember the first time you see me on camera in the pilot, and I said, "Some weak, pathetic pussy coined the term winning isn't everything." Well, that's not me, and so I was playing Emil Karlik in the thing. So that's what I tried. Whenever I would, every time we'd be shooting a scene and I was trying to get into character, in my head I'd say, "They stink and you stink. Let's see who stinks the most." And that was my motivation, if you will, for playing the role for 3 years.
That's hilarious, because that literally sounds like a Marty Daniels quote. Like, I'm convinced it was in the show now.
Well, you know what? I think they had asked me there were a couple of references that were from me, my real life, like they said something about I dated one of Charlie's Angels. I don't know if you remember that. And I did.
No way. Which one?
I don't talk about it now. But yeah, it was fun. It was a great time. I mean, I sorry it didn't last longer, but everything is meant to be. It was a great experience, and like I said, it makes me feel a little relevant that your whole generations knows my work. Most of you guys have no idea about my football career, which is okay, but they just know me in one regard, like my Coach Marty Daniels.
And before we go back to the football career, unless Alex has another question after this one about it, do you think Blue Mountain State was the greatest casted show of all time, where yourself, you're the perfect Marty, Alan is the perfect Thad, Darren is the perfect Alex, Romano is Sammy, like everyone just felt like themselves in that show?
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, anytime you have a great show, the casting was right. And it's one of those shows, though. Like a lot of people probably hated it. It was panned, when it first came out, which understandably so. They thought it was terrible, sophomore, crude, but it was everything that your generation loved and wanted to see. So there's a lesson to be learned. You especially today. You have to know your audience. You can't it's rare that you can make everything something that appeals to everybody. You're a lot better off trying to hone in on who your audience is and whether it was done, intentionally or it just happened. That's what we did. I mean, it really resonated with your generation, and that's good. And it's lucky too. I mean, it's just luck. Luck. Who knows? I mean, seriously. Again, to go to Thad. If Thad was a different character, the show would have been a different show. So it's anytime you're doing something like that, there's a lot of luck involved. And if you look back at it, you see that. And if you look back at it, it's a life's lesson for everybody. There's no. Someone once said to me, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Sounds corny, but it's something that football coaches would say. But it's true. And when I look at Blue Mountain State, we all got this opportunity, and we were prepared to take advantage of it. And it just all came together. We all got lucky that, there wasn't really a weak link in the show, which is rare. It was sort of the perfect storm. Now, I'm not trying to make Blue Mountain State into some Gone with the Wind, but it was it's satisfying to know that I did something, as rude and crude as it was, that affected a generation like you guys. It's I probably shouldn't be so proud of it, but considering what it was, the message it was perpetuating. But it was fun. It was just fun to be part of it, and it's nice that I meet guys all the time who are, they everywhere I go. I mean, airports, I get pictures taken and everything, and they're so, kind of in awe of just. They have trouble separating me from the character. It's just funny. Anyway.
Does it almost annoy you in a sense, though, that your football career kind of gets overlooked? Because, I mean, you were voted one of the 150 greatest NCAA players of all time, second in a Heisman Trophy. You played in 2 Super Bowls, and yet, like you said, we just call you Marty Daniels. Does that bug you at all?
When I left football, I had an opportunity. I did a game for an NFL game for ESPN when they first started. What they did, they first started doing football, pro football, and I think it was a Monday night game. It was a Monday night game, and they asked me to be. That's when they were using a guest commentator in the booth. And they asked me to do a game, and I'd never done a game. And I put those earphones in, and fed me stuff to say. And I said, "This shit's boring." And I probably could have had a really good, long, lucrative career doing that. I'm a reasonably smart guy, good background, whatever. But I did not want to spend the rest of my career living in the past, if you know what I mean. I didn't want to be talking about football unless I was playing football. When I was done with football, I was done with football. I didn't want to. I mean, I'm proud of what I did in the football field. To answer your question, I'm glad that people remember me for something other than football. I mean, I don't want people to remember me what something I did 50 years ago or 40 years ago, and that's it. I mean, someday you'll understand when I'm dead and gone. You'll remember I said that to you. I mean, it's not. You want to live in the past. And I didn't have to live in the past. I didn't have to talk about what I did 40 years ago all my life, which I still talk about my football career. I got friends who, they're always asking me, what was it like to do? I talk about it, but, I'm here talking to you guys, and you don't give a shit about my football career. You care about Blue Mountain State. Which is kind of, at least I got more than one thing to talk about. So, and I'm hoping it's not over, I mean, who knows? I might do something else. I'm not done yet, Actors don't retire. They either can't remember the lines anymore or they die.
Well, I mean, I feel like you don't give yourself enough credit in the football realm as well, because like we definitely look at those football stats. We definitely remember it. And not only that, I love a story I saw on your Instagram recently. You didn't want to get drafted to Minnesota. Why not?
Old.
Well, you know what? I'm born in New York City. I grew up right outside of Manhattan. Um, I was growing up. I was a New York Yankee fan, a New York Giant fan. Um, I was kind of a big city kid, if you will. I worked every summer in New York City. I delivered food, and I know the city. And when I thought about playing in a, when I was, like I said, when I realized I might have a chance to play football, I thought about, Los Angeles Rams or New York or, I wasn't thinking Green Bay, So and frankly, I'd never been to any place in the Midwest. I don't think I'd been to any. At that point, my senior year, I don't know if I've ever been to Chicago or the first time I ever went to the West Coast, I played in the East-West Shrine Game in the Hula Bowl. And the first time I flew cross country, and it was amazing. Then I went to Hawaii. So when they said Minnesota Vikings, I didn't even know where it was on the map. It was culture shock for me. And my first purchase, when I signed my contract, I bought a Viking purple Porsche. It was beautiful. It was a convertible. It was gorgeous. And I pulled into training camp with this purple Porsche, 22-year-old rookie. And I pulled in the parking lot, just a bunch of pickup trucks and station wagons. And they looked at me like I had two heads. It was pretty cool, though. They still talk about that purple Porsche. That's how I envisioned, being my pro football career, not being in Minneapolis. As it turned out, it was a wonderful time. I got to play for a great coach, Bud Grant. Great teammates, played with several Hall of Fame guys. And it was pretty cool. And I got to play in 2 Super Bowls. And playing for the Vikings was, back then they were a bit of a throwback team. Bud Grant was very structured guy. And, we had rules about hair and when everyone was wearing hair down to here and taping up them, and Bud Grant would not allow any of that stuff. And we practiced standing for the national anthem, standing at attention for the national anthem back then, where we would practice. They made the rookies practice how we would stand, and we had a way to do it. Literally, your chin strap was snapped. It was under your right arm. You put your toes on the sidelines, and you stood with your chest out, and you didn't fidget because Bud Grant would stand behind. Now, this is the truth. Bud Grant would stand behind during the national anthem and look up and down. And if you were fidgeting, scratching your ass or something, this is right before kickoff. He'd take you, he'd go, hey, we don't move during the national anthem. Okay, you got that? Yes, sir. Okay. So that was like throwback. You could never get away with that today.
Those times whenever you were with Minnesota, of course you were there for a couple of years, and then you became part of one of the first free agents classes after they made that change to the Rosen rule. How did that come about? I know you mentioned earlier that you were Joe Namath was a bit of a mentor for you, and I'm assuming he was part of the reason of trying to make that change. But how did it feel to coming about that year, being like, I might be part of the first group of people to be doing this?
Well, that happened when I was after my fourth year. So I became a free agent after my fourth year in Minnesota. Yeah, I mean, it was. I would have stayed with Minnesota if I just didn't feel that they were giving me a chance to do what I knew I could do, is run with the football. They never let me run. I was, I don't know if you probably saw the stats, but the two things that I didn't do at all in college was block or catch passes. And when I went to Minnesota, that's all I did. And learning how to block in the NFL, it was my greatest athletic achievement. And I wasn't even that good at it. But, learning how to block some of these linebackers, and they don't want to be blocked, and I'd never blocked before, it was hard. And I knew I could catch the ball, but when I left Minnesota, I held the Viking record for most catches in a game. I caught 11 passes one game. And my last year there, I was third in the NFC and sixth in the NFL in receiving. But they wouldn't let me run the ball. We had Chuck Foreman, who was a great player. But, I'd start a game and carry 4 or 5 times. So that's basically why I left. And I went to the Jets because Joe helped orchestrate that move. And that was great because I got to go back to my hometown. Dream come true. And the last 2 games I played before I got injured, I gained 111 yards on the ground against the San Francisco 49ers. And the next week, I gained 120 yards against the Buffalo Bills. Then the next week, we played Monday Night Football against the Patriots, and that's when my career pretty much ended. I had a bad foot injury in the second quarter, and that was sort of it for me. But at least I proved to myself that I was an NFL-capable running back. If 100 yards was the barometer for a running back, I did it 2 weeks in a row. And in Minnesota, they would never give me the ball. So that was kind of satisfying. And that was, if I didn't get hurt, I probably would have had a 10-year career. I know I could have played for 10 years. I played for 6. I could have played for 10 years. I was reliable. Ironically, I never got hurt, but an injury ended my career. But I was a good guy, clutch player, could catch the ball, play. If I wasn't a starter, I could help a good team. But if I had played 10 years, I would have never gone to Hollywood. So after 10 years, I would have gone into business somewhere, done something. But so it all worked out. I mean, I was 28 years old when I retired from football. I was single, and I could afford to just say, hey, I'm going to go to Hollywood and be an actor. And it just, I'm glad my career, not glad, but, my career ended when it should have ended.
In last question I have here myself, it might be a bit difficult to kind of perceive, but I guess what was, like a bigger emotional hit in terms of either you, like, was it more of an emotional low for you to have that injury and not play football? Or do you remember more the emotional high of getting that 4-deal contract to the long-term deal with Hill Street Blues? What was kind of like a bigger emotional moment for you, do you think?
Well, that's an interesting question. When I realized my football career was over, I probably went through a year of like a transition, emotional transition. Everything I ever known, my whole identity was that of an athlete. Okay. And probably going and trying to pursue an acting career and being in those acting classes were probably therapeutic in a way. You know, I kind of it was a little difficult for me as an athlete. You very much you're guarded. You know, you get hit. You know, you're feeling pain and you don't show it. You go back to the, you go back to the huddle. You're all right. Yeah. When you're an actor, it's just the opposite. They want you to show everything. So when initially I'm in my acting class, I'm watching all these actors and they're crying and they're doing all this emotional stuff. And I'm going, ooh, that's, what a bunch of losers. But then I understood that, it was, and not to sound artsy fartsy, but, I started to, kind of recognize, emotional stuff. And as an actor, you have to, and, you open up a little bit, football, you just have to be one certain way. It's all about intimidation. It's all about, tough, mean, And then going into, as an actor, I guess at that time in my life, it helped me, probably helped me with the transition, although it wasn't easy. It took me about a year before I embraced the kind of whole new world I was living in and let go of the football stuff. So after it took me probably 2 years, which is not a long time in the Hollywood world. It took me 2 years before I got Hill Street Blues. And it was, it was very satisfying. But you know what? I didn't have any problem with, I wasn't so thankful. I figured it was, why not? I'm good. I know how to do it. I was still had that cockiness. It isn't until you reflect back, like I'm doing now, which again, you asked me that question. I hadn't really thought about that. But, it was pretty cool. And, you're not as cerebral or introspective back then. You don't sit there and kind of, you just do it. Hey, cool. How much am I making? Good. Let's go. Next. You're driven like that. And it isn't until you look back and these moments have significance and kind of sort of make you see how you went from that to that to that. But when at that age, it wasn't. It was just what's next, and I was still cocky, and it wasn't like I was. I was thankful. The best thing is and this was a long time ago, and you know how much money I made my first 3 years in the NFL. I made $24,000 my first year, $26,000 my second year, and $28,000 my third year.
Holy.
My fourth year, when I became a free agent, I had to play out my options, which the team had and I played at a 10% pay cut. So I made $25,200 that year. Okay. The only reason I made any money playing football was I went to the Super Bowl twice and we got bonus money, and I had a couple of incentive clauses with Minnesota that paid me, another 10 grand or whatever. But I made no money. Okay. When I went to Hollywood, I would do, when I'm doing Hill Street Blues. I remember I hosted some silly ass fitness contest on television, a fitness thing, and they paid me $25,000 for the day.
For one day.
For one day. Okay. I was making, when I went to Hollywood, and that still wasn't compared to today, that's not a lot. But when you played a whole damn football season for $24,000 and they pay you $25,000, like 5 years later, they pay me $25,000 for the day. It's kind of Jesus, what happened? So, I felt rich. I mean, I made more money, as an actor. Hell, yeah, I was making $150,000 to do a TV movie, And I always related it to what I didn't make that much in my whole football career. So, I was one of those spoiled actor kids. I mean, I busted my hump and get my ass kicked by a bunch of big guys for 6 years. And then you go to Hollywood, you get to kiss pretty girls and they give you $150,000. So,
And before we let you go, give us one more Marty Daniels quote. I'm actually going to tell you my favorite line that involves Marty Daniels' dad. At one point, he says, Coach Marty Daniels is so strong, he could bench press my frown into a smile.
now you see, that's kind of funny stuff, right?
He has another line too. Like, I think it's look what dick had the balls to show up to this party. It took me like 3 times through to catch on to that. And then when I did, I was like, that is so clever.
Yeah, that was Romansky and Eric Falconer. We had a really great team of writers. Those guys were the head writers, but we had some really talented, funny people. And we had the freedom to do stuff, ad lib stuff, which was good. It was and remember, there's like we were talking. I had a big gap. I think I ended doing Hill Street Blues like 1987, I think it was, or around there. And I did this show 2010. So there's a pretty big gap in the style and technology and all that stuff between that and I'd done other things in between. But to do a show like that with all these young people, there was just an energy and a sense of fun, and it was really a fun job. And I have, like I said, I have so many great memories of those guys, and who knows, maybe one day we'll do a retrospect. Well, wouldn't it be cool to see everybody like get together now, what they're doing, like a reunion?
Absolutely.
That would be that. I don't know why they're not doing it, but and everybody could talk about how decadent they were back in the day. It'd be really funny. It would be a big hit, and I'm surprised nobody has thought about doing it. I'm sure people have. I don't know how much time has to go by before it would be kind of come back into vogue, if you will.
Hey, definitely something that's up for potential. Like I said, if you could give us a Marty Daniels outro, that would be awesome for us.
One thing I just like to tell all my young fans like you, don't ever forget, you come from your father's balls. You didn't just pop out of your mother's womb like a glorified jellyfish.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, Ed Marinaro, Marty Daniels.